divine in me honors and recognizes the divine in you. This is How to Achieve Ultimate Fulfillment with Carlos Duran. This is Class 6, Plant Allies and How to Use Them in Our Life. Okay, this is Plant Medicine and Spiritual Allies is the title of the class. Today we have with us Mariah Ganessa. Mariah, would you like to say something?
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Carlos, and it's such an honor to be here with you all. Looking forward to a wonderful class, and I've been following along here and there throughout this course, and it seems like it's been a really powerful 6 weeks together, so it's an honor to be here. Welcome to everyone, and thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mariah. Okay, so everyone is muted. Remember, you guys can unmute yourselves at any time, so just have an awareness of that as we go through the class. Oh, Señor, venga. See, look what I have here for everyone, guys. Look who I have here. Ah, it's Taita Juanita. So we did get a little bit of Taita. There we go. All right, guys. So, and everybody can see me okay? Yeah? Okay. I can't see myself for some reason, but I don't think that's so important. Okay. Bueno, here we go. So when we think of plants, speaking of plants, I would like to have a little bit of Mambe. So I'm going to have a little bit of Mambe and Ambil, and this goes perfectly aligned with today's class. So when we think of plants and we think of spiritual allies, we have a tendency to over mystify, we make it very esoteric, you know, and the truth is, it's funny. There's in the house where we're staying, there's a very, very, very ancient Bible. It's like 500 years old. And it's very interesting because like many spiritual texts, over time, they've been adulterated, they've been changed. But as I was reading this, one of the first things that was brought into creation was the seed and the fruit. So from the very beginning of time, when the waters were first created, the sun, the moon, the earth, the stars, boom, the plants were there. And you have to think about that because plants, with their intelligence, have bore witness to the creation of earth and the development of humanity. They know our story from beginning to present. And there's not a lot of elements that can say that, you know. Human beings, we don't know our own story from beginning to end, you know, but the plants know it. So when we think of plants and we sometimes become very esoteric, we overlook the broccoli, we overlook the kale, the lettuce, the tomatoes, because plants, they have spirits behind them. And, you know, I don't mean just like Casper the Friendly Ghost, woo, spirits. What I mean by spirits is they have a soul. They too have an essence. They too have an intelligence, a wisdom. And this wisdom in plants, from seed to seed, from generation to generation, the code of this wisdom is passed down. So when you eat an heirloom organic kale today that was grown on a farm with love, it is containing the wisdom of all its ancestors, of everything that it has done to support humanity, and the broccoli, and the tomatoes, and the carrots, and the grapes, and the oranges. And what we find is that in the plant kingdom, there are plants that are allies for the mind. There are plants that are allies for the spirit. And there are plants that are allies for the body. And certainly there are plants that are very adaptogenic, and they can serve multiple areas. So some can serve mind, body, spirit, mind, body, spirit, and so forth. So one of the first things that's important for us to realize with our eyes, to realize with our mind, and to realize through direct experience is that there's an entire kingdom, okay? And in our culture, we call it the vegetable kingdom. In the Western culture, they call it the plant kingdom. But for us, vegetable and plant is all the same. And so in this kingdom, there's an army there ready to support you in mental stress and anguish, clarity, depression, issues of the mind. There's an army there ready to support you in the immune system, in your endocrinal system, in your adrenal system, in your nervous system. There's plants there for the body. And of course, there's plants for the spirits, right? And we'll get to those later because we know a little bit more or less about those plants, but it's all these other plants that I first want to bring your awareness to. Because what happens is that plants in the physical world, okay, so remember, as we study spirituality, it's important to keep in mind that as above, so below, and as below, so above. So what does that mean? That means that everything in the physical realm has its spiritual counterpart, and everything in the spiritual realm has its physical counterpart. So we see the plants here in the physical world, okay? So we know that in the spiritual realm, they have a counterpart. Another thing that we're able to scientifically prove and see in this world is that the plants have a communication system. Different genus, different species of plants can communicate with each other. And they do this by releasing and absorbing different chemical compounds through the root systems. But an oak tree can communicate with a cacao tree, for example, that might be in the same field or hundreds of miles away. It's fascinating to study how plants think. There's an amazing book called When Plants Speak. And the studies that they have done in this book to show exactly how deep, how intelligent, how profound the life of plants really are. It's phenomenal work, and I encourage you guys to read that, and we'll include that in the notes. So here we have material proof that plants communicate. So according to our spiritual understandings, if they're communicating here in the physical realm, it means that there's a communication in the spiritual realm. And here's where it gets interesting. Because in the spiritual realm, the illusion of time and space don't exist. So all the aggregated information, all the knowledge that the kale family, that the lettuce family, that the Swiss chard family, the beet family, the onion family, all these plants, all that information that they've aggregated through millennia, it's all stored there, boom, in the spiritual realm. So, for example, obviously, maybe it's not obvious, but the best thing to do is to grow your own food, right? That's top shelf, okay? And then the next thing after that is to know your farmer, to be able to visit their farm, to understand where the land is, how they treat their plants. And then from there is to buy from an organic local farm. And then of course, if you can buy local organic. The idea is that you want to have organic plants in your home, whether it's on your food table or in your garden, or they're simple ornamental plants, because chemicals are invaders. They invade the plants, they affect the plant. They cause different imprints over the plants. So if you can have your own garden where you touch the seeds, and those seeds, and we'll talk about a technique in a little bit to codify seeds specifically for your needs. But if you touch the soil and your sweat goes into the soil, and you're speaking to your plants, and a little bit of spit goes into the soil, every drop of sweat, every drop of spit has all your genetic information in it. It's amazing exactly to what degree we're truly holograms, right? We're so convinced of this 3D, but really we're holograms. And in the smallest sliver of yourself, the entire codification for your genetic makeup is there. Why is that important? Because, for example, when you take a seed, and I'm going to put in the links, this other series of books for you guys called The Ringing Cedars of Russia, which is an amazing series of books. And in these series, one of the things that they talk about is codifying seeds for the people that are growing it. So you would put the seed in your mouth for 10 minutes. You know, your wife can put a different seed, or your son, and your daughter, your nephew, and the saliva penetrates the information into the seed. And now when that seed begins to germinate and the plant begins to grow, it is growing with the specific intention of filling in all the holes that you need. So it's aware of what you need in vitamins, in minerals, in enzymes, in amino acids, in proteins. And then this plant begins to grow specifically to adapt itself to fulfill those needs. So it's amazing if we can grow our own garden. And then every time that we touch the soil, that a little bit of our oil goes into the soil, a little bit of our sweat, a little bit of our spit, it's codifying the soil. It's transferring information into the plant about what's going on in your body. You know, what are you strongest in, and what are you weakest in, and what can this plant offer you to help support you in your evolution. And so far we're just talking about kale and broccoli. Okay, seriously, you know, the power of the common plant, let's call it that, because I can't think of another word at this time. Although, you know, when I studied with the Indians in Talamanca in Costa Rica, I remember there's a phrase in Spanish called yerba mala, which means bad grass, or translated is weeds, right? Those are weeds. We just cut them out. And I remember when I was studying with the cacique, with the chief, I said to him, I was like 8 years ago, I said, oh, that's yerba mala. Those are weeds. And he looked at me, he goes, no hay yerba mala. Solo hay hombre que no conoce la yerba. What did he say was, he goes, there is no bad grass, only the man that doesn't know it. So everything in nature, even the poisonous plants, can be used for something. As an example, in our culture, there are certain plants that are considered poisonous or toxic, but we work with them in such a way that we can use that energy for something positive. As an example, many people have heard of belladonna, or Queen of the Night. It's also called borrachera, trompeta, reina de la noche. And so this plant has many stories behind it, and it's true. You would not take this plant and grab it, make a tea and drink it, because it's toxic. But if you know how to work with this plant, you can use it to treat insomnia. You can use it to dispel negativity. You can use it to create a peaceful frequency inside the bedroom, allowing the person to dream again, to relax. So there's many ways that we can work with different plants, if we know how to make them our ally, to make them an asset, a tool in our life. Okay. So, like, for example, as we were saying, you know, I love kale, so I'm always going to kale, right? So the body's blood has a pH level, okay? And depending on what medical theories you subscribe to, like the ones that I subscribe to, say that the terrain is everything, the germ is nothing. So, for example, in an alkalized body with a balanced pH, cancer cannot exist. It requires an acidic environment where the cells become cancerous as a form of self-sustaining, Okay, cancer cells are actually a health mechanism in the body, and these cells become cancerous. They become 15 times denser than the average cell, and they survive off of their own waste. But this is because the external environment has become so toxic that it is better for the cell to survive off its own waste and become a cancerous cell with the splitting and all the radical cell creation as a result of the acidic environment. And it's better for it to do that than to just be its normal self in the acidic environment, because then it would die and you would die. So it's actually a survival mechanism. So plants, for example, green plants like algae, like spinach, like kale, like broccoli, like lemons, these are alkalizing plants that we can make smoothies with, that we can make juices with, okay, to fortify the body. Now, you guys have a huge advantage that you're spiritual. You're not me, I'm not spiritual, but you guys are spiritual, else you wouldn't be sitting here. So you spiritual guys, when you have your kale, and it doesn't matter if you got it from the farmer, or from Whole Foods, or from your garden, you can pray over it. You can pray over your broccoli. You can pray over your lettuce, over your tomato. You know, and if you want to deal with a very specific health issue, then you set that intention while you're praying. You understand? You start injecting the consciousness, you start communing with the plant. Because one of the most important things, one of the biggest things in order to cultivate plants as allies is to have a relationship with them, to have a communication with them. So if you have a physical ailment in the body, you can go and research what are the plants best suited to treat this ailment or this disease or this nutritional lack. And you can commune with those plants. You can speak with them. You can pray to them, set your intention, and then apply them, whether it's in a smoothie or a balm or a juice or a soup. It's pretty amazing. It's radically amazing. You know, there's other plants that we don't think of. You know, we don't think of the copal, for example. The copal is the resin that comes from a plant that we can use as a smudging agent to clear the energy of a room, to clear the energy of ourselves, to sweeten the energy, to invite sweeter energy in. There's basil, mint, rosemary, cinnamon, lemongrass that we can use in a sweet bath. There's the healing lotions that come from the Amazon with the cuyanguilla and the coquindo. You know, there's for the mind, there's an endless amount, and a little bit, Mariah's going to discuss this a little bit more. But there's an infinite number of plants that we can use, like Chinese herbs, ginger, the variety of mushrooms that are all good to clarify the mind, reduce mental stress, induce mental clarity, fortitude of the mind. Because when the mind is resolved, when the mind has that iron will, the body responds with strength. The body responds with passion, with fire. So what we find is that in the plant kingdom, there's plants that are allies for the mind, the body, and the spirit. And they're available there all the time. The important thing is to begin that communication, because between allies, there's communication. Between allies, there's a clear understanding of what's expected in the relationship. If I'm your ally, I should know what you need from me in order to stand behind you. And vice versa, if you're my ally, right, you should know from me what I need for you to stand behind me, okay? So here is communication. It's communicating with your plants, you know, it's speaking to your copal, a little intention, a little prayer, speaking to your sweet baths, your lotions, speaking to your salad, your smoothie, your green juices. It's so important to have that dialogue because there's two things. The culture teaches that the plant spirits want to hear the children of God, that's us, speak to them. Okay, that's one. They want to hear us speak. Two, when we speak and they respond, we learn to listen. All of a sudden, you're walking in the park, and literally you're feeling guidance from the trees. They're sending you a message. There's an intuitive guidance that's coming. I've seen it in my own life as I've cultivated a deeper relationship with the plant kingdom. My relationship with animals has changed. The connection is amazing. And so right now, Mariah is going to talk to us a little bit more about different plants that we can use and how we can use them. Especially, there's going to be a slight focus on feminine empowerment plants. So these are plants that if you're a man, you can take awareness and you can use them to help you further connect to your own feminine divine goddess inside of you. This is something that you can use to help your mother, your sister, your romantic partner. And of course, if you're a woman, there's going to be a part that obviously the feminine part is directly for your feminine environment. So let us open up Mariah's mic and welcome her. Thank you, Mariah.
Can you all see me and hear me? Yeah, we're good? Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Carlos. What a beautiful insight into how we can really start to deepen into the realm of plants as teachers. And it's really one of my favorite subjects to talk about because it allows so much insight into ourselves and this opportunity to practice self-exploration and self-investigation. Part of our spiritual empowerment, I believe, comes from this ability to learn how to be our own healer. And plants really offer this as we start to uncover the different herbs and plant medicines that we can use to support us in activating our optimum health and vitality. So, Carlos asked me to come on today, and I'm just going to speak for a few moments here about some different examples of how we can start to incorporate this awareness that Carlos is speaking about, starting with the plants that we put on our dinner table. But when we start to really have this awareness that every plant talks, that every plant and every herb, every flower has a medicine, it has a lesson, it has a teaching, then we can really start to tune into what our bodies need. And this idea of body-plant communication, intuitive communication with nature. Plants are a doorway. They are a portal into deepening your connection with the Earth Mother. And deepening your connection with the Earth Mother is imperative to your spiritual awakening and your spiritual empowerment. Because we can talk about being spiritual, but there's nothing more spiritual than going and laying our hands on the earth or picking lettuce from our garden to make our salad with, and connecting to the force of life that is running through us and running through the veins of the earth. So, many of you have probably heard of the Melaleuca tea tree for cleaning and for sanitary purposes, or lavender and peppermint for headaches, for calming, and for relaxation. And these are very simple examples of the ways in which we may already be aware of the ways in which we use plants and have been, brought up. Oh, my mom always made me ginger tea when I had a stomach ache. These types of things were part of our upbringing, and now as we start to deepen in it, we're able to go off of those first memories that we have and go deeper now and to form those relationships more fully. So one thing that Carlos asked me to speak a little bit about today was female reproductive support, hormone support, and overall balance of the female reproductive system, because this is a really big way in which herbs have supported my life and they support women daily. Sorry, Carlos is looking at me like he can't hear me. Take them out. Okay, that should be a little better. So red raspberry leaf, red clover, and nettles are the main herbs that I recommend to women who are seeking support in any phase of life, whether you're pregnant or you are bleeding still or you're in menopause. These are all herbs that are super supportive to the female reproductive organs and to the balance of the hormones and the general overall well-being and nourishment. Herbs like these are extremely nourishing on subtle levels, and they allow our body to tune into our own healing powers and capabilities, meaning these herbs activate the part within us that knows how to heal ourselves. So by activating that portal, it works with our own bodies, with our own spiritual awareness of healing, to go into the areas that require more support and more nourishment. During the moon time, it's very common to take teas of sage, rue, and cinnamon. These herbs are for cleansing, for eliminating, for purifying, for supporting, and for warming the uterus and the female reproductive organs so that we can bleed and release blood with more ease and fluidity. And what Carlos was saying about how these are important things for men to be aware of too is because, like, how beautiful would it be if you were able to give your sister or your mom like a little bit of wisdom that could change their entire life, and these herbs really do that, and they're so deeply powerful. I think that is it on the feminine support. I did just
Would you explain a little bit on how to prepare a yoni bath?
Yeah,
how to use it?
Totally. So another element of how we can start to incorporate herbs into the support of the female reproductive organs is through yoni steams, which are vapor baths that you make, and then you sit over them to allow the steam to enter into the uterus and the yoni. And so the traditional herbs that you would use would be like gentle, relaxing, more feminine herbs. So lavender, rosemary, rose, chamomile, sage, raspberry leaf, and nettles are also good as a vapor. And so these herbs, you just make a tea out of them, a concentrated tea, and then once it comes to a boil, you can sit over it comfortably with maybe a cushion, but you want to make sure this vapor enters completely, and you just sit there until it's no longer steaming. It's an incredibly nurturing self-care practice to incorporate into your daily ritual or your monthly ritual, depending on how often you like to use them. And you can also make baths with these herbs, which is also something that men can do too. There's so many different herbs for nourishment, and a lot of the herbs that we use in the sweet bath, they could also be used to make baths with, and allowing the body to soak in the herbs and praying to the herbs, communing with the power of the plants, and allowing yourself to open to the wisdom and the mystery that these plant medicines carry for us.
Oh, thank you, Mariah.
Thank you.
Mariah will be back. Okay, Carlos is now unmuted. Thank you, guys. Okay, so what I said was, before we transition into the next part of the class, if anyone has a question, you can either type in the question here in the chat box, or you can just type in your name and I will unmute you. So we'll give a few seconds for that. If you have a question, just go ahead and type your name or the question to the chat box. Okay, there's no questions right now. So if a question comes up, just go ahead and put it in the chat box and we'll get back to it before we end class. Let me move the chat box screen over here and over here. Okay. So now that we talked about maybe what wasn't obvious before, and so hopefully now, from here forward, your view on broccoli and kale will be very different than it ever was. And also, I wanted to say that before we go on into the spiritual master plants, as they're called, there's amazing plants, and I encourage you to study about the reishi mushroom and the chagra mushroom and cat's claw, maca, macuna, Hakuna Matata. No, just kidding. Got you guys. Okay. So those plants that I just mentioned, they're really awesome. Also, Siberian ginseng is amazing. Russian ginseng, highly adaptogenic. I personally, for the mind body, I use a lot of dragon herbs from the Dragon Herb Company, different tinctures and elixirs. That for immunological support, health, grounding, mental clarity, and so forth. And I think they're fantastic. I'm not a big supplement person. You know, it's not that I don't believe in supplements, just personally, you know, but these, I've really fallen in love with these supplements. And so if you guys want to check out their website, Dragon Herbs, something or other, but it's good stuff. It's good stuff. So now, when we look at the as they're called, the master plants, you know, there's a story that talks about this big canoe, and this big canoe came from heaven. And in this canoe, there was the coca plant, the tobacco plant, the cacao plant, the yahe plant, and boy, if I don't always forget that fifth plant, I think it was San Pedro. It was the marijuana plant. Thank you very much. So, but here's the thing. So the point is that in different cultures, they talk about different master plants. And you'll find that in Peru, they have a consideration for what the master plants are, and in Brazil and Venezuela. And in different parts of the world, they have different connections with different plants. So for them, these plants that have offered the deeper experiences into the realms of spiritual wisdom, or the spiritual library, they call them the master plants. You'll find, for example, in Mexico, you'll find peyote, you know, and the southern part of the United States. In parts of Europe, you'll find amazing psychosyllabus mushrooms. And the way that our teacher, Teta Juanito, explains it is that in all the parts of the world, okay, whether it was a plant like the yahe, or like the coca, or if it was a mushroom, or if it was a cactus, or if it was a meditation like yoga, or a meditation like qigong, our culture teaches that all these ancestral wisdoms were left as pillars of light, as a memory for us and the generations to come, to be able to remember that ancestral wisdom and go back home to the big house in the heart, to return as an individual and hopefully as a race back to that essence of love, of purity. So for us, all the master plants, all the teacher plants are valid. They're all beautiful, they're all accepted. All plants have a technology, you know, and it's important that when you want to work with one of these plants, as best you can, you source the technology. You begin to understand, because in the Western world, you know, there's this thing that we do that's good, but then sometimes it's not so good. Like we're very brave, you know, we're very do-it-yourself kind of people, and you know, we like to figure things out very quickly and boom, 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 and then evolve them and make them better and more efficient. And you know, that obviously doesn't work all the time, because where we are today. But that kind of mindset can be very positive. However, for example, Yahe is a culture that is over 5,000 years old. Okay, there's a technology there, there's a wisdom there. You know, And we think, oh, it's a plant, and you know, the guy puts on some feathers, and he puts on some necklaces, and you know, he serves some of this brew, and then he's, you know, he blows on it and he gives it to people. I can do that. I can wear feathers. I can wear a necklace. I can get some brew and, you know, blow on it and hand it to people and call it a day. And it's funny, we don't think we can do that with yoga, right? I mean, nobody here would say after 5 classes of yoga, I'm a yoga master, right? No, but in the Western world, if we feel that if we can mimic something, then we can master it quicker, or we can understand it, and therefore we can facilitate. That's not the case. So what I'm saying is, when you're gonna work with a spiritual plant and you want to develop a relationship with it, it's important to go to the source of the plant, to go to the technology of the plant, to the people that have been using it for hundreds or thousands of years. And there could be different ways of using a master plant. For example, the yahe. There's one way that we use yahe in our Ingano culture. Yahe in Brazil becomes ayahuasca, and they have a different way of using, a different way of brewing it. But at the end of the day, these are all ancient guidelines. These are all ancient techniques for connecting with the plant. So the technology, through time, application, and study, has been validated. So whether it's Peru or Brazil or Colombia or Ecuador, the important thing is to go to a place that you trust. Or if you're going to go to Europe to study the Psilocybus mushroom, or if you're going to go to Mexico to study the peyote, or to Guatemala to study the cacao, it's important that you go study with people that have they're recommended. You know, there's a reference to who they are, where they come from, and there's an experience of people that have been there prior, and you take all that into account when selecting a place that you want to go study. Because ultimately, you know, you're not seeking to become, you know, a master shaman in every plant technology, because that's not, but you at least want to have an understanding from the point of origin on how this plant is administered, what it's used for, and how it's used. Okay, so that's important with any master plant that you want to work with. If, for example, like for us, I haven't gone to Brazil to study rapé, but I've had the chance to sit with my teacher many times over the last 6 years, and watch him apply rapé, and have him talk to me about the rapé and understand the rapé. And you know, like my connection is like this, but it comes from a source. You know, it comes from a teacher that knows the plant kingdom. Okay, so that's also valid. You know, if you have a teacher that works with the plant kingdom and they're already working with certain plants, this is a valid place as well to get your preliminary education. But always understanding, even my teacher will say, you know, there's only so far you can go with someone that's not a full master or a true master in that plant. So if you have a calling to go deeper with a plant, then you are going to have to go to that source to learn the technology. You want to learn, because plants are like light ships. You know, they're ships, intergalactic ships. You know, when I have rapé, when I have mambe, there's a part of me that's journeying in other realms. There's a part of me that's seeking, you know, I have the mambe in my mouth with the prayer that what I speak be truth, be clarity. So there's a part of me that's journeying somewhere in that plant kingdom, asking for support, asking for the words to come, asking for the right guidance to be spoken from this mouth. So there's always a part of you when you're working with the medicines that's connecting to that realm, that's bringing you that information. Okay, so what do we want to do in our life with these allies? These allies, they live with us, you know, again, whether it's the cacao, the peyote, the rapé, the mambe, the yahe, the mushrooms, the lotions that we put in our body. These allies, their essence is always with us, okay? So if I invited all of you guys, all of you beautiful people, here to this home that's not mine, for a dinner party, and we had a beautiful table, and we had vegan, vegetarian food, and we had fish for the pescatarian, and meat, for, like all decked out, right? And then I start being belligerent in the middle of dinner. I start insulting you and taking wine and splashing it in Mariah's face and knocking food off the table and just being a wild boar about things. That's insulting, right? I mean, no matter how spiritual we are, we're insulted by that kind of behavior. So when we have a plant ally that's always hanging out with us, right? Because the plant didn't say, hey, make me your ally, right? We went to the plant, we went to the lotion, and we said, help me, clear my energy, open up my heart to love. We said to the copal, please clean my space. We said to the kale, please make my heart healthy. We said to the spinach, please make my gut healthy. Or we said to the Chinese herbs, please clear my mind. We're asking of these plants. They're never asking anything of us. So we're inviting them over for an eternal dinner, right? So what happens when I have these plant allies with me and I start sipping on some of grandma's happy juice, alcohol, and I start getting drunk once a week, once a month, or I start eating a crappy foods, foods with pesticides, foods that have, strong negative karmic ties to them. I start cultivating thoughts of lust, thoughts of envy, thoughts of jealousy, thoughts of judgment. Do you understand? This is you being belligerent in your own dinner party. This is me getting up after I invited you guys to come over and eat and acting like a jerk. So what am I saying here? Let me be very clear. Your allies need your support and your kindness. Okay, you have to think, the more that I invest in my spiritual path, the more that I invest in calling upon plants as my allies, the more I have to have an awareness of my guests, of their presence in my life, and to avoid things that would be distasteful to my guest. If we were geopolitical masters of the world arena, we wouldn't insult our allies. You want your allies close to you. You want your allies vibing with you. You guys want to be on a single frequency. I wouldn't tell my most powerful ally, yeah, hey, you know what, bro? You smell funny. You taste funny. I don't need you. Or I wouldn't drink a hey Friday and then Monday be doing shots of vodka, or maybe going to a strip club, or going to a massage parlor with a happy ending, or screaming at my husband, or screaming at my employees, or just you don't want to do things that are going to insult your dinner guests. That's the bottom line. Okay, that's enough examples. The bottom line is that you're inviting these plants to be allies in your life. Okay, so you have to conduct yourself as a person who has now invited guests into their life. And the deeper your relationship goes with these plants, the more present they are in your life, the more aware you should be of their presence in your life, and then the actions, the thoughts, the words that you're generating, and how it could be impacting or affecting your ally and your relationship with those allies. Okay. So now, in thank God, as Taita Juanito explains, we live in a time where we have so many plants available to us. If the yahe and the shitting and the vomiting, and 1,000 hours of therapy in one night are not your thing, there's cacao, there's peyote, there's San Pedro, there's the temazcal, you understand? There's the tobacco. There's the coca, the mambe, there's the rapé. There are so many plant allies that have, because you have to understand, at one time, all these spirits lived in a jungle or in a forest. They were secluded from the mainstream world. Look at what happened to marijuana as it was brought onto the mainstream world. It's been perverted. It's been adulterated. It's been commercialized. A lot of the culture and the spiritual technology behind marijuana has been lost. Something very similar with mushrooms. You know, they've become party, I hate the word drugs, but you know, they become like party elements. And yeah, they're supposed to be for a spiritual party, a spiritual celebration, you know, done in an environment of light. But if you start taking these plant spirits and taking them into arenas of darkness, um, let's say like a really shady nightclub, it can, you know, we have to understand that elements and environments are coexisting. Okay, so an environment that is supported by alcohol spirits, okay, that's supported by the concept of lust, of instant gratification, like a nightclub, because this is pretty much what it's designed to do. It's designed for drinking and fucking. That's pretty much why we go to nightclubs. These environments, they become harbors for negative energies, okay, negative entities. And so if we bring our plant spirits, our allies, into these places, what are we exposing our allies to? And if we have ingested this ally, like marijuana, like a mushroom, our spiritual portals, they're open, right? You're open, you're exposed. And here you are walking into this environment with 1,000 energy vampires, and you're like a little lamb to the slaughter, you know, because your energy body is completely open, and here they come in, you know. And believe it or not, this is the result of a lot of conflict and issues in our life, is because we don't have an awareness of where we're exposing our energy portals to and where. With these plant allies, it's important to have an awareness of why you're using them, your intention, where you're using them, and how you're using them. Where does your information, your learning, your instruction come from? So that's the how, the where, at what place, what time and space are you connecting with your ally, and the why. What's your intention for working with that ally in that moment of time in your life? So one of the, I really like Rapé, because Rapé is an ally that I can, pásame a little container. So, you know, Rapé is something that you can carry in a little container like this, or a little plastic jar. Let me see, a little applicator, personal applicator. Thank you. Mariah, #1 producer. So, and this is your personal applicator, right? And so here you have a connection into the spiritual realm, where these two tiny little things, but it's a world of power that's sitting in here, right? This is my Rapé. So at any time, if well, I work for myself, but let's say that I worked in an office, right? And I had a difficult meeting, or there's a lot of something's going on, you know, where I'm not centered. You know, I can go to my car, I can go to the break room, I can go somewhere quiet, sit down for 5 minutes, place my intention. I have my Rapé, I have my prayer, I have my Rapé applicator. Boom, I serve myself some Rapé, I apply it, whew, and I'm there, I'm in the prayer, I'm in the moment. What more can we ask for? You know, portable allies. You know, we don't have to go through a whole 8-hour ceremony every time, or go, you know, we have these here with us. So because Rapé is such a powerful ally that has such a simple mode of transportation, I really have an affinity towards it, a deep appreciation for it. So one of the people that I personally know that has a wealth of Rapé information is Mariah. So we're going to open up the mic again to Mariah, and she's going to share a little bit about this powerful medicine with us. Thank you, Mariah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Carlos. I'm learning so much from your talk. And ultimately, you know, I get really passionate to talk about Rapé and tobacco. So it's an honor to get to share a little bit with you today. Like Carlos said, you know, tobacco and Rapé is such a wonderful practice to drop you into the present, to connect you with your prayer, to allow you to have this opportunity to create ritual in our lives. And ritual is one of the things, along with prayer and meditation, that are so deeply important for us looking and seeking connection and desiring to feel this connection with the force, connection with God, connection with life. Tobacco is an ancient plant medicine, just like Carlos was sharing about. And all of the plants, they tend to have a masculine or a feminine principle behind them. Many of you have probably heard of Mother Ayahuasca. It's a feminine plant. And the tobacco is a grandfather plant, and it carries the divine masculine principle. So within that are the qualities of strength, the qualities of firmness, the qualities of concentration, endurance, the ability to center oneself and draw forth the power from the great central sun, the Father Sun. And within the tobacco, we find all of these qualities. It's also a vehicle for prayer, for cleansing and purification, and an opportunity and ally to be able to commune with Creator. Ancient traditions all over the world have had practices with tobacco, specifically Native and Southern American tribes. But it's been a part of their community since the beginning of their civilizations. And it was revered by natives for thousands and thousands of years until the arrival of the Western culture that came and brought with it a complete manipulation and transformation of the cultural use and understanding of tobacco. And so I like to talk a little bit about tobacco before I talk about rapé, because it's pretty important to understand this relationship with tobacco if we're going to be using rapé. So upon the arrival of the conquistadors, they quickly saw, the Spaniards, the Europeans, they quickly saw that this was an opportunity for profit in the tobacco, that it could be a cash crop. And they literally stole it from the natives, genetically modifying it, creating an entire economic empire that was based on deception, manipulation, and the fact that they realized that putting addictive chemicals in the cigarette papers and massively genetically modifying the nicotine content to increase it by unnatural quantities, that this would then become highly addictive and the customers would keep buying. So this principle of consumer and profit manipulation by economy is seen all over the world in so many different situations. But this relationship with the tobacco is such an interesting one to highlight and to talk about, because within the rapé, there's almost the salvation. There's an opportunity for us as Westerners, as white people, to almost redeem this medicine, to revere it in a way and to open a door to be able to reconnect with the spirit of not just this plant, but all plants. In many ways, it's representative of all of the indigenous wisdom that lies within the plants and the spirits of the plants. So if you feel a call in your heart to have a rapé practice, and by all means you have to feel the call, just like with all of these plants, then it's a wonderful tool to incorporate, just like Carlos was sharing about. There's an opportunity to uncover and deepen in so many different ways in your prayer and ritual practices through the development of a relationship with the rapé. And what I found is that the rapé is an incredible tool to get to learn how to form a relationship with any plant, because it's so beautiful to be able to serve yourself, to be able to go into prayer and meditation with it, to be able to have it on hand, for it to be something that can take 15 minutes and then you go back to your day. And if we talk about, plants in support of healthy habits, plants as support of healthy practices and healthy routine in our life, what we've seen with rapé is that it's incredibly effective with supporting the transformation of addictions and unhealthy habits and patterns. If you go to eat food when you're stressed, or you go to smoke cigarettes, or you smoke too much pot, starting to incorporate rapé as an ally to strengthen in your own personal intention with life, and not go to those crutches not go to those distractions when we're feeling that need to connect is really what it comes down to, because addiction stems from the lack of connection. So if we can find a way to incorporate deeper connection with source in those moments when we flutter, in those moments when we need something to help us, to center us, to ground us, to go to the rapé is a really beautiful practice to have. And it's really a plant ally, just like all of the other medicines. And it's been something that has completely transformed my own life. And I have a deep connection with this particular plant. So it's an honor for me to speak about it. But ultimately, you know, this tobacco rapé is just one of the many, many tools. And it has a very beautiful way to show us and to demonstrate to us the power that allies really have once we commit to having an ally through a spirit of a plant, and we really choose to be a carrier of this plant, this herb, this medicine. So I think that's about it for rapé for me. Oh, someone's asking about a good source to purchase rapé and tobacco.
We'll get to that. Thank you, Mariah. That was beautiful. Thank you. So we're almost going to wrap it up here, guys. So we're coming into the final lap. So one thing that we didn't talk much about, I mentioned it briefly, is the Temazcal, or the sweat lodge. And it's an earth medicine, but there's also plants that are used in the Temazcal. There's the copal that's used, and there's different sweet plants that are brought in. In some traditions, there's a sweet tea that's passed around between doors. So, for example, if in your life you're going through a rough patch, or like my friend said to me the other day, he goes, man, things just, I've lost my synchronicity, he said to me. You know, meaning that things just weren't lining up for him in his life. You know, it's near misses and near hits, but things weren't lining up. So if you feel that things are out of synchronicity, or it's a rough patch, or things are just oddly bitter, or just bitter and they've been bitter for a while and you don't want them to be bitter anymore, you would go through a sequence of baths with plant allies. Okay, so you would do 3 to 5 days of bitter plants. You would take tobacco, you would take rue and sage, and you would make a bath out of it. And you could either actually literally sit in the tub, or you can pour these over your body. So what you would do is you would take a big pot of water, and you boil the water on high until it's boiling. Then you put it on a low simmer, and you break up your plants into this big pot. You cover it, and you let it boil for about an hour and 15 minutes on low. You let it cool, and then you can store that in the refrigerator. And if you're going to take a bath, you pour some into the bath and you dilute it with water. If not, you can just take a little cup full when you take a shower and pour it over your body. The important thing is to let it air dry. Of course, you know, if you can spend more time in the bath with them, the better. Air drying and letting them pour over your body is just fine. We usually travel a lot and there's no bath, so we usually just pour these plants over our body. After 5 days of the bitter plants, so what we're doing there is we're extracting the bitter elements that are causing this lack of synchronicity, or these energetic blockages. And then for the same amount of days, 3 to 5 days, you do sweet baths, okay? And the cooking process is the same. The application process is the same. And for a sweet bath, you would use basil, rosemary, mint. The most important ingredient is basil. You can add cinnamon if you like, and lemongrass as well. And then you repeat that cycle for 3 to 5 days. So what you did there was you took 3 to 5 days to remove bitterness, and then you took 3 to 5 days of sweet plants to attract sweetness. You can use the sweet plant bath by itself. You don't have to use the bitter bath. If you do the bitter bath, you have to follow up with the sweet bath. But if you just want to bring in more sweetness into your life, if you want to bring in some more joy, some alegría, some happiness, then just do the sweet baths as well. The important thing here is to use the allies, okay? Many times we'll only pray when we're in trouble, you know, and we'll only seek uh, our celestial protectors when we're in trouble. But the idea here is to build a relationship, okay? The idea here is to have a standing communication. And so that one, oftentimes, just this relationship, as it's developed over time, will steer you away from trouble. Many times it'll be unseen. You'll have no idea of what you were like protected from, you know, because it just didn't happen. You had no idea. But I assure you, if that relationship with your allies, your spiritual allies, your plant allies wasn't there, you would find out exactly what you missed. Two, when that river of shit comes up to your door, okay, but you already have that long-standing relationship with your allies, you use them, boom, you apply them. You apply the lotion, the copal, the sweet bath, the rapé, the mambé, the yahé, the temazcal, the cacao. Whatever it is that you're called to apply, boom, you apply it. So I'll give you two examples. One, if there's a situation in your life that you want to call celestial energy over, you want protection over, you can set an intention. For the next 3 days, I'm going to meditate with cacao. For the next 3 days, I'm going to meditate with rapé. For the next 3 days, I'm going to meditate with mambé. For the next 3 days, I'm going to meditate with tobacco. And I'm applying this meditation for this intention to go towards this specific situation. And yesterday, I was having an issue. We're starting a nonprofit. And this nonprofit is Magic Fund, Mobilization for Amazonian Growth and Indigenous Culture. So the scope of this nonprofit is to support the preservation of indigenous knowledge and to support the protection of the Amazonian rainforest. Our projects are in Colombia, which makes getting a bank account complicated because we are going to be sending sums of money on a regular basis to Colombia. And this, of course, requires a lot of investigation. They have to make sure that it's not a narco operation or a terrorist operation, that we're not funding some kind of evil empire. I was frustrated. So what I did was last night, before I went to bed, I had my rapé, I said my prayer, and that was my prayer for the evening before going to bed, that this situation come into clarity and the best financial institution to be our partner come into light. Okay, and then if I don't receive a call, I'll apply it again and I'll keep working with it. But what am I doing here? I have a specific situation in my life. I'm taking the allies that I already work with and my prayer, bringing it together and focusing in that direction, towards that intention, towards that purpose. So many times we find ourselves in destitute. Oh my God, I don't know what to do. I have to call so-and-so. I have to, and not that calling so-and-so is wrong. No, that's perfectly fine. Call, voice yourself, speak. But remember something, in that chaos, in that storm, in that frustration, in whatever is happening, that fight, that blockage, you have allies. You know, you can always retreat. Instead of trying to take your problem head on, retreat into your allies and allow your allies to take your problem on for you. Retreat into your prayer, into your meditation, and into your plant medicine connection. And allow that, boom, you apply it there, you put it there to whatever the problem is, whatever the situation is, whatever the blockage is. You take your prayer, you take your plant ally, and boom, you place it there. Because that's what they're there for. They're there to support our growth. They're there to support our development. They're there. The plants are there to support us in mind, body, and soul, to evolve into our highest self, to evolve into the best version of ourselves possible, and to evolve in our relationship with Divine Mother and Divine Father. So it's not enough to have the information in your head. It's not enough to just use the plants once in a while. If you really want to walk strong with your allies, you have to have a regular communion with them, a regular dialogue. So for example, yahé, some of us can only drink yahé once or twice a year. But the yahé is already inside of you. Okay, if you drink it once, it's already there forever. So you can use other plants. You can use teas, chamomile tea, cinnamon tea, ginger tea, to strengthen that connection with the yahé. You can use other plants to strengthen your connection with other plants. You understand? Because it's all one kingdom. And in the spiritual realm, they're all talking, they're all dancing, they're all singing, they're all hanging out together. They all know each other. So you can use that to your advantage. You can use their alliance with each other to your advantage when you make these plants your allies. But again, it's so important to actually apply it, to actually commune with them, to sit down every once in a while. Of course, the more the better, and talk and pray and dialogue, and then listen, observe as answers come forth. Look, sometimes we get answers and it's not the answer we want, but it's the answer that we need. And we have to be humble and surrender and accept that. But again, to have the allies, it's not enough to have them in your mind. It's to have them active in your life, to have an ongoing relationship with them. So right now, if I'm going to go over the chat, there's some questions here, and I'm going to get into the questions. So if you want to type your question, go ahead and type your question. If not, just type your name and I'll unmute you. Teresa says, what is a good source to purchase Rapé and tobacco? Well, we are. Mariah and I have contacts in Brazil, and we frequently travel into Colombia, into the Amazon regions of Colombia. So for example, if you were interested in a Rapé or a tobacco, a copal, we have those. If you wanted to purchase your sweet baths or bitter baths instead of making them, we have those available. We also have healing lotions available. And then if you had a specific situation where you needed either a tincture or an elixir, you can let us know. So basically, if you send me an email, I will, and you tell me what you're looking for or what the problem is, we'll guide you in the right direction. And if we can't source it for you, we'll direct you and who the best source that we know that we could recommend for you. We have plants to help with sleep, to dispel negativity, to improve connection, spirituality. So just send me an email. Let me know what you're looking for, either in terms of a specific product, like, hey, I want Rapé, I want copal, I want a lotion, or what it is that you want to deal with. Hey, you know, I'm having a hard time sleeping, or I'm having a hard time with this, and then we'll help you out. We'll happily guide you along with that. Susan says, can we use essential oils as part of our plant connection? I certainly do. Mariah does. Susan, we love essential oils. Young Living, doTERRA, your best friend's essential oil. If there's love in the oil, if you feel the connection, absolutely go for it. We are definitely big fans of essential oils and using them as our plant connection. Angelica says, is it advisable to try different types of Rapé on different days? Yeah, Angelica. So there's Mariah will tell you there's many different types of Rapés for different situations. And what's important is to try the Rapé and see what you feel in your heart, and to keep that, you know, you test it, you go back and forth, and then you come to basically scientific conclusions using your heart, your mind, your body, your spirit, to see what connections to the Rapé in different situations or different days can be. Angelica also asked, how does one decide which one to use if you have a few different ones? Okay, I answered that. It's not so much trial and error, but it's rather it's a spiritual scientific process of intention, purpose, and then you try it and you see how that particular Rapé helps you connect to that specific intention or purpose. But again, there are Rapés that are combined with different plants to offer different types of support: immunological support, spiritual support, feminine support, masculine support, etc. Well, Angelica, you're welcome. We love you very much as well. Thank you. Let's see. Rick says, what are the quantities of each plant for the bitter and sweet recipes? Okay, so I usually recommend a big pot of water, about a gallon size or so, if you can. And then I just like to say bunches, like a bunch of basil, you know, a bunch of tobacco, a bunch of mint. There's not too much, you know, you're not going to go overboard. You're not going to, so if you put a bunch of each and you crush it up into the water, and then you can test and you can say to yourself, you know what, I think next time I'm going to make it with more basil, or next time I'm going to make it with a little bit more of this or a little less of that. So it's really, I like bunches into a gallon, and then the rest is personal, whatever, however you like it. Cynthia, hola Cynthia. Cynthia says, once you have invited the plants, does it stay with you? Will it continue to call you? Yes and yes. The plants stay with you. They will continue to call you. But again, we want to respect our guests. The plants are with you actively so long as you maintain the right internal and external environment, so long as you're working toward transformation and change. You know, just like everything else, if you ignore them, if you become belligerent, it's not that they leave, but they go dormant. You know, there's nobody talking to them. You know, even I would get bored if nobody talked to me after 2 days. And I can talk to myself a lot, but after 2 days, I want to hear somebody else. So having that relationship with the plants is what really keeps it active. But yes, Cynthia, they stay with you and they do continue to speak to you. Stefania says, what is it in a person that makes them feel a calling for one plant versus another? My teacher would say it's your heart. My teacher would say that your heart is what guides you to the plants that you should work with. This is why it's so important to learn to listen to the heart. This is why it's so important to purify ourselves, to clean ourselves of negative thinking, of negative words, of negative actions. Angelica, what are you cooking over there? I can see everybody. Angelica's cooking. You look wonderful, dear. So, oh, I can't hear you. She's talking to me.
Sorry, I'm making chapatis.
Okay, well, they'll be over in 20 minutes.
Okay, sure. I need more practice, though, let me tell you.
We'll be there to help you out. Thank you, Angelica. You look wonderful in that blue. So yes, Stefania, it's definitely your heart that will, again, this is why it's important to purify, to cleanse our mind, body, and actions so that we can have clear communication with the heart when it's guiding us between teachers. By teachers, I mean plants, but it could be any kind of teacher. Mariah says The Beauty Diet by David Wolfe is also a great book, so we'll include that there for you guys. So Teresa says, I love how you describe the process of forming a relationship with our allies. You're welcome, Teresa. My pleasure. Let's blame that on the Mambay. What is it? So Teresa says, what do I put? What's my input on coffee? I love it up the butt. I love coffee enemas. I really do. I think coffee enemas are fantastic. Green coffee, I don't have a lot of experience with it, but I've read a few articles on green coffee. It seems to be a great way to ingest coffee. And like everything else, I like my coffee organic. I don't drink coffee every day because there are studies that show that there's positive properties of coffee, but there's also studies that show that coffee can be very acidic on the blood, then causing the blood to leach from the bones, phosphorus, zinc, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. So, you know, I think coffee is something that it's like everything else, you know, maybe not drink it every day, you know, and organic when you can. It's processed lactose is horrible. Scientifically, processed lactose is basically dead bacteria and mucus. White sugar is horrible. So how you take your coffee is also very important. Me, preferably in an enema. That's just me. Coffee enemas are excellent, guys. If you've never had a coffee enema, I highly recommend you do a little bit of research on it and get some of that going. It's a great way to clean out the gut, detoxify the liver, and revitalize the body. Mariah, do you have anything else you would like to share?
No, I'm just very grateful to be here with you all. It was lovely sharing this time together, and God bless you. Thank you.
So guys, before we go, Rick, our pleasure. We love you, Rick, and God bless you as well. Thank you for being here with us. I know that you're very busy, and all of you, we appreciate all of you being here. Guys, we're going to get some dates out to you in a few weeks after this tour with our teachers over. Mariah and I are going to start a 3-week course. It's called The Jaguar and the Hummingbird. It's all about balancing and coming into understanding with your divine masculine and feminine energies, both in your environment and internally. Right now, it's looking like a 3-week course that we're going to dedicate 1 week to coming into balance with the feminine energy, 1 week with the masculine, and then 1 week talking about bringing it all together. So when we have those dates and those details, we'll get them out to you guys. In the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to email them to me or to me, and I'll get them to Mariah if you have specific questions for her. Other than that, my beautiful people, I love you guys. Thank you. 6 weeks have gone by. Remember the first week when yeah, where'd it go? What happened? And here we are. Guys, I love you so much for making this such an amazing success. May all these tools serve you. May they be instruments of prosperity in your life. May the Divine Mother always protect you. May our Celestial Father always guard you. May you always feel the love of our Creator flowing from you and to you, and always have full awareness of its presence in your life. Thank you all.